Modern scientists have long preferred to limit the history of human civilization to a few thousand years, to which the abyss of the wild and cruel Stone Age allegedly stretched. But the discovery of such ancient cities as Chatal-Guyuk in Asia Minor or Jericho in Israel made us look at this issue a little differently and extend the cultural period of mankind's existence by about 4 to 5 millennia. However, according to UFOAC.com, as for the written evidence of the ancients, science continues to take into account only those that it recognized several decades or even 100 years ago. Meanwhile, there are documents that allow us to calculate the history of the Earth's civilization by at least tens of thousands of years. Paradoxes from serious scientist George Senzel was reputed to be an outstanding historian. He lived at the turn of the 8th and 9th centuries after the birth of Christ. For many years, Senselus preached in Palestine, was the personal secretary of Patriarch Tarasius of Constantinople, after whose death he retired to a monastery where he engaged in writing. The most important work of Senselus is considered to be selected chronography. When creating it, the historian used the works of ancient authors such as Josephus, Manetho, and the famous Babylonian priest Beros, in whose work one can find a lot of highly unusual. The erudition of George Senselus even allowed him to reasonably criticize the father of church history, Eusebius of Caesarea, for falsifying Egyptian chronology. The Egyptians have a certain plate called the Old Chronicle. It contains 30 dynasties over 113 generations over a period of 36,525 years. The first group of Princess Orets, the second Mestrones, the third Egyptians. The Chronicle says, no time has been determined for Hephaestus, since he was both day and night. Hephaestus' son Helios ruled for 30,000 years. Then Kronos and the 12 gods ruled for 3,984 years. The next were the demigods, 8 in number, who ruled for 217 years. Senselus himself in particular wrote, the philosopher Simplicius of Cilicia, one of the founders of the Alexandrian school of Neoplatonism, distinguished by his business-like nature and strict attitude to facts, in the 6th century reported that he had heard that the Egyptians had been making astronomical observations for the past 630,000 years, even if he was wrong, and it should be about months. Then, an impressive period of 2.5 thousand years is still running up. The late Romantic historian of philosophy, Diogenes Laertius, the owner of a sharp and sarcastic mind, established that the Egyptians made their astronomical calculations 48,863 years before Alexander the Great. The encyclopedic writer of the first half of the 5th century, Marcian Capella, claimed that the Egyptians had been secretly studying the stars for 40,000 years before they revealed their phenomenal knowledge to the world. Zodiac, evidence of antiquity. Even Manetho, whose list of the dynasties of the pharaohs is the cornerstone of modern Egyptology, cited information in favor of a much deeper antiquity of Egyptian civilization than is now commonly believed. In the surviving fragments of the history of Egypt, there are the following words: the first man in Egypt is Hephaestus, who is also known to the Egyptians as the discoverer of fire. The hire of his son Helios was Sosis, then in turn Kronos, Osiris, Typhon, the brother of Osiris, and finally Horus, son of Osiris and Isis. They were the first rulers of Egypt. After that, the royal power passed from one to the other without interruption, up to Bidis for 13,900 years. Then for 1,255 years, gods and demigods ruled, and again for 1,817 years another royal family gained power in the country. Then another 30 Memphis kings ruled for 1,719 years, and after them another 10 kings ruled for 350 years. Then came the reign of the spirits of the dead, which lasted 5,813 years. Manetho wrote, the arrangement of the stars, as it was approximately 90,000 years ago, is demonstrated on the Zodiac, decorating the ceiling of the temple of Hathor in the Egyptian city of Dendera. Moreover, the Zodiac is so magnificent that the original ceiling was removed and transported to Paris during the Egyptian expedition of Napoleon I, and a plaster copy was laid instead of the original. Astrological symbols of the zodiac, as the British ufologist Raymond Drake writes, according to the precession of the equinoxes, mean the passage of 3.5 large cycles of 25,800 years each. The originally built temple has long since turned to dust, but the unique zodiac was copied by initiates who sought to preserve this evidence of the deep knowledge of the ancients. The dating of 90,000 years shocks our modern minds, accustomed to limit the history of civilization to 4 or 5 millennia. But similar zodiacs were found in the temples of northern India and on Babylonian clay tablets, royal lists. It is curious that the Chaldeans also had so-called royal lists that operated with dates of unimaginable antiquity. The history of the Sumerians, who preceded the Babylonians in Mesopotamia, according to these lists, it began with the creation of man. In the Bible, we are talking about 10 forefathers. If we count from Adam, among the Sumerians, they were called the oldest kings, and there are also 10 of them. These really forefathers were distinguished by extraordinary longevity, but the Methuselah age against the background of the life expectancy of the Sumerian rulers does not seem so great. According to one of these royal lists, in which only 8 kings appear, they reigned for 241,200 years. According to another, which mentions all 10 for 56,000 years. After that, the flood broke out, but humanity was reborn thanks to the surviving righteous Utnapishtim. A new dynasty of the kings arose, whom descendants perceived as gods and demigods. There were 33 kings in the dynasty, who ruled for a total of 24,510 years. After that, there were several other not so long-lasting dynasties, but the history that science now takes seriously begins with the death of the epic hero Gilgamesh around the beginning of the 26th century BC. How many people were there in total? Very unusual. Information about the past of mankind is also contained in the mythology of the Aztecs and Maya. It is not even about one, but about several human beings, which definitely echoes the teachings of the Theosophists. Codex Vaticanus, a genuine monument of Aztec culture, says that the first race on earth were giants, and they died of starvation. The second humanity became a victim of a grandiose fire. Some of these people, according to legend, were able to survive by creating tunnels and fortified chambers under the surface of the planet. Traces of branch underground structures, the age of which can hardly be estimated, are found in many corners of our planet. There are such structures in South America and in the African Sahara Desert and in India and in Western Europe and all over the world. For example, in Karelia and in the Ziguli Mountains. The third humanity in the Aztec myths are called intelligent monkeys, who died as a result of some cataclysm. The fourth race was similar to modern humans and drowned in the waters of the flood. The fifth lives and develops to this day. The Rios Codex and the Telleriano Remenses Codex are documents copied in Latin script in the Aztec language from earlier sources. Also tell about 4 who lived before the present humanity, which again were destroyed by global catastrophes, albeit in a different sequence. Aztec sources allocate from 4 to 5,000 years for the existence of each of these human beings, but there is one curious nuance here. The Aztecs and Maya, in addition to the usual dating, also operated on a number of so-called sacred years, the duration of which is, for example, 20 years for the holy year of Katun, 400 years for Baktun, 8,000 years for Pictun, and 64 million years for the longest in this series of Alautun. So it would also be necessary to clarify what years, in fact, the Mesoamerican Indians are talking about in such chronicles. Of course, this kind of dating looks frankly frightening or even delusional. Perhaps they could be brushed aside, as, by and large, is done by serious science. However, the artifacts of unimaginable antiquity, which were discovered in different parts of our planet by researchers and random people, I think, make us take the oddities of ancient documents cited in this article more seriously. Summing up our small research, I want to draw your attention to the fact that we still do not have reliable information. Yes, there are tunnels, but this does not mean any cataclysm. The texts do not answer the questions. Where did these other races come from? Why weren't the Aztecs and Mayans destroyed in those unfortunate periods? Unfortunately, there are no answers to these questions yet. but we will continue to research and keep you informed.
If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to us and hitting the like button. Feel free to write a comment below and suggest which theory you want to see next. If you'd like to further support this channel, please consider joining. Our membership link will be found in the description box below. We appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.